I've been really thinking about what it means to bear one another's burdens. So I did what a lot of Latter-day Saints do when we are getting ready to give a talk. I went to the dictionary and I just wanted to get a little bit clear on what it means to bear. And the verb to bear means to hold up or support. And a burden is, and there are several dictionary definitions for both of these, but a burden is something which is born with difficulty. And I like that the word bear or a different tense is used in the definition of burden. But so that's kind of where I'm coming from, is that to bear one another's burdens is to hold up or support each other's, the weights that they carry that can be difficult. I'm going to start out with an experience that I had personally where there were other people that helped me bear a burden. And then I'll talk about some experiences that I've observed and that I've been able to be a part of myself. So first of all, this picture right here is something that happened just almost exactly 16 years ago. Actually, it was just a little bit more than 16 years ago. This was the day that my youngest son, Edison, was born. My sweet wife, who was 8 months pregnant, had an eclamptic seizure. And while she was driving, she had pulled over. She was stopped on the side of the road, but she blacked out, ended up hitting this house. And it changed our lives in a lot of ways. It destroyed our car, caused a lot of damage to this house. I did not know what to expect when I got to the hospital. And I had a sweet chaplain who pulled me aside, spent some time just comforting me. And spoiler alert, he's fine. He's 16 years old and making our life super exciting. It started out that way and it continues to be that way. And my wife survived as well. And there were some miraculous events that day. But one of the things that was super important that I didn't even know I needed was we have someone who's become a very close friend, Marcia, who she's been on the Fireside before as well. And she heard about this from somebody, I don't even know who. I called my parents, her parents, Marcine's parents, and the bishop. And my boss. I told him I wasn't coming to work that day. And Marcia showed up at the and she just sat with me. She just sat with me. Now, she's a therapist, and she knew that would probably be important for me to have somebody that I could just talk to. And she just sat with me. The great thing, as I look back, she didn't try to fix anything. She didn't try to make me feel better. She didn't tell me that everything's going to work out or this is all for the best or anything like that. That probably would not have helped me in the moment. But she just sat with me. And that was so important. One of the things as we sit with people, as they're struggling with things, we don't know, so many times we just don't know what to say. And we wonder if we're even going to see the right thing. And I think a lot of times, at least for me, I worry that things are going to get awkward. Now, the awkwardness only exists with me in my mind. The other person is so wrapped up in their experience, the challenge, the difficulty that they're dealing with, that they don't even know. And so this was at my sweet daughter Carissa's wedding reception. That's Mark right in the center. And Allison, my oldest, is giving him an awkward hug. Mark and Allison love to give each other awkward hugs. And so she's just at his knees giving him a hug. And I thought this is a perfect image to demonstrate embracing the awkward. As we think about what we can do for other people to bear their burdens, we are going to feel, most likely we're going to feel awkward. And we may second guess our thoughts. Should I say anything? Should I reach out? Should I do anything? What should I say? And just embrace the awkward. Doing something is probably better than doing nothing. In fact, I just heard on a podcast the other day, don't just do something, stand there. Which is a switch on some of the things that we sometimes have said. Just stand there. Just be with the person. Let's go to the next slide, Mark. These are two experiences that I've observed of people just being there. A lot of times when we're burdened, when we have heavy weights that we're bearing, whether it could be a job loss, it could be a loss of a member of a family, it could be any number of things. Being there, just being there is important. And the problem with us as we're going through those experiences is we don't know. We don't know what we need. And a lot of times on the outside, we may look to the person and say, what do you need? And we just don't know. So this first image. This is a few months ago as my mother-in-law was dying. And this is my son, Brendan, who is sitting. In fact, I pulled the image up a little bit closer. He is reading to her. And that is one of those cardboard books, like for a kid. He's reading to her. He's just sitting there with her. He's just being there. She was unconscious at the time, but he was just being there. And that to me was such a sweet moment where he was just there. And I know he was there partly for himself, but he was there also for her. There were times that I have a different picture that I didn't put in my presentation where he's just sitting there holding her hand. And there would be times that she would squeeze his hand, and that was the way that she would communicate. Something that's interesting about that is people mourn in different ways. And at the same time that this was going on, Allison was having a very different experience mourning. And she reached out to a great friend who also has been on the Fireside before, Liz Pilling. And Liz just came over and they sat and they cried and they laughed. And Liz was just there. She was just there as a support. This other picture, this is that woman in the center. That's Marcia. That's the one who sat with me in the hospital. And I had a great opportunity to support her through her burdens. Jeff, who is her husband, the guy in the backwards baseball cap, turned at an age even older than me about a year ago. And to celebrate, Marcia wanted to surprise with a trip to Harry Potter World. And she talked to a couple friends and I got in the loop. And so the three of us, Silas, who's taking the selfie, and Jeff, a different Jeff, who's on the far left, and I surprised Jeff in Orlando, and we just showed up. Now, the interesting thing about this, we had a great time. It was so fun being there. But 2 days before, I got a text from Marcia. Their oldest son, who was one of my young men when I was in the young men's program a lot of years ago, had his cancer had returned, and the prognosis was not good. Marcia was at a conference in Orlando, and she texted me. She knew that we were going to come out. We had this big surprise party planned for Jeff, and she texted me. She said, "Don't come. We can't do it. We're not in the mood." And I thought, I'm just going to go. And I don't know. I don't have any idea what we're going to do, but I already had my ticket. I'm just going to go. And that next night, the Friday night, the day after that she texted, we sat in our hotel room and we just cried. And the five of us, and we had a sweet, sacred moment where we got to just share. I was the only one of the three of us that had come out to surprise Jeff that knew their son, Josh. The other two knew stories of him, but we just had an opportunity to minister. And I just feel so blessed that I got to be a part of that sacred moment. I got to witness just deep connections with the Spirit. It was wonderful. And we just figuratively held each other. We talked, we reminisced, we just gave them, Jeff and Marcia, gave them a chance to just mourn. They anticipated that their son would lose his life, and he did. He passed away actually a couple of weeks before my mother-in-law did. And so we were both going through that grieving process at the same time. And we just took time. One of the things, as I look back, one of the things I think I did right was I didn't try to tell them this is all going to be okay. I didn't try to tell them that you shouldn't feel sadness. Families are eternal. At least you have other kids who are still living. Because those things don't help. A brief story I thought about, and I'll just tell some short details. I have a friend who on his birthday, his wife and daughters were killed in a car accident. And so on his birthday, I want to reach out to him and tell him happy birthday, but I know that is such a hard day for him. So every year I have to remind myself, embrace the awkward. I don't know if I am going to say the right thing. I don't know if there is a right thing, but every year for the last several years, I've reached out to him. I've texted him and I said, I know today is hard. I just want you to know I'm thinking about you. And sometimes he doesn't respond, and sometimes he responds with appreciation. But I think as we embrace the awkward, embrace just giving people a chance to feel their feelings, I think that is so important. It's okay to have fun too. One of the things that I've noticed as we observe different ways that people mourn, I've seen times that we say things or we do things. Here, think about this instead of the sadness or the burden that you're going through. And I think there may be times that that's appropriate, but it's absolutely important for us to give ourselves and each other some space to feel the feelings that we're going through. Jeff and Marcia, as we sat in that hotel room, we just all were sad. We just sat and we embraced that sadness and that grief that we knew was going to come. And the next day we had an absolute blast at Harry Potter World. And it was such a sweet overall experience to be a part of that. As we think about things like that, be aware of firsts. My mother-in-law passed away earlier this year. So this is the first Thanksgiving that our family has had without grandma. And this, in a few weeks, we're going to have the first Christmas without grandma. And so sometimes that can be a little bit daunting as well. Please connect with people. Let them know you're thinking about them. I came home from work one day and my wife had made 6 jars like this that had black-eyed Susans, nice little ribbon around the neck of the jar. And it was our date night. I said, "Oh, these are so pretty. Who are they for?" And she said, "I don't know." That was so weird. How can you not know? She said, "I don't know. Sister so-and-so in the ward, her mother just passed away. So I'm thinking we may stop by her place, but I don't know. We'll just go." Well, we went, and as we were driving, we had a couple of these other vases in the car, and my wife turned to me, and she's so in tune with the spirit. She said, "So where are we going to next?" And the funny thing was a name popped into my head, and I was so afraid to say anything about it, and I don't know why, but it was one of my home teaching families back in the days where we had home teaching. And I was afraid to say anything about it. And so I just said, I don't know. I don't know where we should go next. And she said, "Let's go visit." And she named the same family. It was so unexpected, but we went there and the couple was outside. The wife was sitting on the porch. And so my wife went up to talk to the sister of this couple and a young couple, young kids. And she gave her the flowers, and it was just a sweet exchange with them. Well, the husband was in the driveway and there was a skid, wooden pallet that had bags of concrete and rocks and bricks and just construction debris that had been left in the middle of their driveway with no explanation. There was construction in the neighborhood, but nobody was taking responsibility for this. And it was in the middle of their driveway, so they could not get their car in and out of the garage. And he was angry, had this whole pallet of stuff he had to move. So I'm the home teacher. I'd show up and we start chatting and I help him start moving stuff off. And it put me in the right place at the right time. I didn't even think about that. Around the same time, I think this was a little after I came home from work, and Marcine had made a batch of chocolate chip cookies, and chocolate chip cookies are some of the most amazing things on the planet. So I reached for one and she slapped my hand away and I said, "What is wrong?" And she said, "Those are not for you. Those are for this family in the ward." And I said, "What is going on?" She was the compassionate service leader and I knew that she was aware of things going on. And sometimes she would arrange babysitting and she would arrange meals and things like that. I said, "What is going on that they need cookies?" She said, "I don't know. I just felt like they needed cookies." Well, I didn't even think about it until about 3 weeks later, we get a voicemail. Back in the days when we got voicemails. And this family called and said, "Thank you so much. That's exactly what we needed." Well, that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me until I was teaching seminary and I discovered that I could take cookies or brownies or chocolate cake to visit my kids, my seminary kids. And sometimes, especially if I prayed about who do I know who needs chocolate cake, I would get an answer. Sometimes it was like, as I would go through the list of kids in my class, as I would pray for them by name, it would be like hitting a speed bump. "Oh, there's one that needs my attention." And I would go to their house. "Hey, just wanted you to know I'm thinking about you." And I would stop by their house, short visit. Sometimes it'd be a lengthy visit, but sometimes it's just a short visit on the porch, on the doorstep. I'd give them a cake, let them know I'm thinking about you. And so this started becoming a thing for me. I started making cakes, and I found these are great 1-pound cake pans. And I make cakes almost every Sunday. So earlier today, I made about 14 cakes, and I like to ask my kids, who do I know who needs chocolate cake? Or who do they know who needs chocolate cake? And I've had a while back, a couple weeks ago, Allison was over and she said, Dad, can I take a couple cakes? Absolutely. Take a couple cakes. And Brendan has taken cakes to people that he knows for birthdays, and Edison takes cakes to school to people that he knows. And so we just have had this great family tradition that's gone for years now. I don't even know how many. I think I can calculate. But we have just found that if we know that there's and sometimes Marcia came up to me one day and she said, did you make cake today? Well, of course, I make cake almost every Sunday. And she said, I know somebody who needs chocolate cake. Do you mind if I take one of your cakes? Not at all. And so we connected. I gave her a cake. We went to visit this friend who was just struggling. She had 2 siblings who passed away in the last few months, and just a hard moment. And we didn't try to fix anything. A lot of times we try to fix something. No, we don't need to fix anything. We just need to let people know that somebody loves them. Somebody loves them. And the easiest way that we can do that is to let them know we're thinking about them. So one of the things that I've learned, and I'll tell you, there are times that I get the awkwards as I'm thinking about, I want to go visit this person, especially if it's somebody that I've not met before, if it's somebody that I don't know well, if it's somebody that I don't have really a close relationship to. I may get the butterflies. I don't know how this is going to be received. And maybe they're gluten-free. Maybe they're vegan. And I've done the cake recipe both gluten-free and vegan, and gluten-free vegan, and it's still good. In fact, I was going to put the recipe up and I just forgot. But one of the things that I've learned is that every single time that I share chocolate cake, every single time, it's been received positively. Every single time. And like I said, the visits sometimes are short and sweet. There have been a few times that people have said this is an answer to prayer, which reminds me of those chocolate chip cookies that my wife made for the family in the ward. And how can chocolate cake be an answer to prayer? It's not, but it is. It's a reminder that somebody cares. In fact, I heard a story recently where there's a man who was walking through Costco. And this is the exact same concept. He was walking through Costco and he saw a bouquet of flowers, and he just had the impression that he needed to buy flowers for a woman in his ward. And he bought these flowers, took them to this woman's home, and he knocked on the door and no answer. But her husband was in the yard doing some yard work, and he said, no, she's in there. Go ahead and keep knocking. And so he kept knocking. Finally, she came to the door, and it was a short exchange. It was one of those, like I've had many times, that, oh, thanks for the flowers. And she closed the door. And it was sometime later that she reached out to him, or he heard the end of the story. Many times we don't hear the end of the story, but sometimes we do. And that is a reminder to me that we're an instrument in God's hands. We're doing his work. We're helping people know that he loves them. So this man got the message from, I think it was from this woman, that years and years and years before, somebody had given her a single yellow rose and said, when you see a yellow rose, just know that God knows you. And I testified that God does know you. Well, he had come to her home with a dozen yellow roses, and she was going through the end stages of cancer. Her health was not good. And she was at the moment that he knocked on her door with these roses. She was praying, just pouring her heart out to the Lord, how alone she felt. And she gets this bouquet of yellow roses as a reminder that he knows who she is. Our Father in heaven knows his children, and we can be that person to bear somebody's burdens. And it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be important. It can be as silly as chocolate cake. or as insignificant as a single yellow rose. But as we are acting on those promptings, as we get out of our own way, ignoring the awkwards that sometimes we feel, and just let somebody know we are there, we care, we love them, and they will also get the message that their Father in heaven loves them too. I know it's true. I experience it almost every week. And if you want my recipe for chocolate cake, I'm happy to share it. I'll see if I can add it to the comments or something like that. But you can absolutely bear people's burdens just by acting on those promptings. And I say that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.